At the time of signing day, the Nebraska 2021 recruiting class was considered by many to be a massive success by the program. The Huskers landed their best commit in well over a decade, their first in-state quarterback commit in well over 2 decades, a plethora of 4-stars and so much more. But what was once considered to be the turning point in Scott Frost's tenure ended up being one of the biggest failures in Nebraska football history. So in today's video, we're going to revisit this Husker 2021 recruiting class, what went wrong. We're going to go over every single Nebraska commit, how their career unfolded, if they transferred, what they're doing now, and everything else you need to know. So really quick, this is a jam-packed video. You're going to want to watch the entire thing because it gets crazy. Hit that like button if you're fired up. And also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Now is the time to subscribe. We post daily Husker football content, talking recruiting, talking breaking news, and so much more. So please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, let's get into it. Revisiting Nebraska's 2021 recruiting class, one of the most hyped up cycles by the Big Red in recent memory, but what was once considered to be the turning point in Scott Frost's tenure ended up being one of the biggest disasters in Husker football history. We're going to go from worst to first. We're revisiting every single player in this class. We're going to go from the low 3 stars up until the high 4 stars and even a borderline 5-star at the very end. So let's get things started with the worst player in Nebraska's 2021 recruiting class, according to 24/7. This was Seth Malcolm, coming out of Tabor, Iowa, linebacker commit. This guy was an 8-man football player back in the day, and he was really, really good back in high school. Nebraska, they actually felt like they got a hidden gem here with his size, with his speed. As a senior in high school, he had 100 tackles, 17 tackles for loss. He played offense as well, ran for about 2,000 yards, 24 total touchdowns, and for that reason, Nebraska beat out Iowa State, Boise, and Minnesota and a couple other schools to get Seth Malcolm. They felt like he was a high-risk, high-reward player, but unfortunately, in his career with Nebraska from 2021 to 2023, he never played a snap. It's just because he was an 8-man football player. Sometimes it's hard to transition to the Big Ten. It's hard to transition to 11-man football. So for that reason, he quit football entirely after 2023. He stayed with the university to get his degree. He's actually in graduate school right now, but just a guy who Nebraska, this was a missed evaluation. They probably should have never offered him 8-man football after a tough transition, and he never played. Now going on to the next guy, Branson Yager, coming out of Utah, offensive tackle / offensive guard, lists at 6'7", 330 pounds. Nebraska, once again, they felt like they got a hidden gem here. Nebraska beat out BYU, Cal, Vanderbilt, and a couple other schools. And this was actually a really interesting thing. Branson Yager also, he transferred without playing a snap. He actually transferred before the season. So he enrolled at Nebraska in January of 2021, and he transferred in July of 2021. So just a couple months later, he left. He was completely homesick. He hated Lincoln. He did not like Nebraska, and he quit football entirely. So he did not transfer anywhere. I don't even know if he went to college after that. There's nothing online about it. So Branson Yager, once again, just somebody who Nebraska clearly did not build that great relationship with him. He never really visited Nebraska multiple times. He did not like it here. He quit football entirely before really he even got to practice. So not a great start to this class, to say the least. It doesn't get much better, but let's get to one of the biggest success stories in the class for Nebraska. This is the third worst player, according to the Stars. This was Gabe Ervin, a guy that Nebraska fans know very well. This is a big-time recruit coming out of Buford, one of the better high schools in America. He ran for over 1,000 yards as a senior and 5 touchdowns. Now, he played right off the get-go when he got to Nebraska. He played in all of his first 4 games, but unfortunately got injured in 2021. Then appeared in 8 games in 2022, got injured again. 2023, played in 3 games, started off the rip, and then got injured. And then 2024, his first full year being healthy, he only played in 8 games, was the 4th-string running back. And after last year with Nebraska, he entered the transfer portal, and he is at Kansas State for his final year of eligibility. So Gabe Ervin was somebody who was just a great power back. He honestly was very productive when he was on the field. The problem with Gabe Ervin throughout his career with Nebraska was he was never on the field. He was always injured. He had some ACL injuries, lower body injuries, ankle injuries, hip injuries. Anything you can name, he had it. And unfortunately with him, that's the reason why he couldn't really have a great career with the Huskers. But again, when he was on the field, he played always. He was always a starter, and he really looked good. So hopefully he can have success at Kansas State this season. Going on to the 4th player, his teammate at Buford. This was Malik Williams. They were a package deal. Now, Malik Williams was a guy who was a very, very speedy corner, listed at 6 foot tall. He was actually very physical as well. He had offers from Texas, Florida, Louisville, a couple other big time schools were really going after him. But Nebraska, they landed his commitment. Now, he only spent 1 year in Lincoln, never played a snap. He really did not like it here, had some run-ins with the coaching staff at that point in time, and then left going into the 2022 season. He transferred over to Stephen A. Austin, and I can report to you that he never played it down at Stephen A. Austin. I believe now he's in community college, and again, not sure what's going on with him at this point in time, but looks like his career just never panned out. So Malik Williams, another guy that was a missed evaluation, and he did not have success elsewhere. Then Sean Hardy was somebody who was a very hyped up wide receiver commit coming out of Georgia for Nebraska, was a mid 3-star guy, 6'3", 180, had really, really good speed on him, had long arms, solid hands, had some pretty decent offers in there. Throughout his senior year, he only had 500 receiving yards back in high school and 3 touchdowns in only 7 games. Now, throughout his tenure with Nebraska, spent the 2021 and 2022 season in Lincoln, and he did not appear in any games. He actually was the offensive scout player of the year in 2021 as a true freshman. So the staff, honestly, they felt like he was going to be pretty good. Didn't do anything in 2022, entered the portal. He went over to UT Martin, and in 2023 with them, he played 11 games and had 150 receiving yards. Unfortunately, did not play at all last year, probably due to injury. So Sean Hardy now in FCS, and he's going to spend his last year of eligibility back with UT Martin this year. Now, Latrell Neville was another highly hyped up guy. One of the most hyped up players in this class for Nebraska. I was pumped when we landed him. We landed him on 4th of July, or excuse me, it was not 4th of July. Yeah, it was 4th of July. It was the 4th of July of 2020, I believe we got his commitment. He was a flip from Virginia Tech, listed at 6'3", 200 pounds. Great hands. Probably some of the best hands we've seen, kind of similar to Cortez Mills, who's now with Nebraska. Back in high school, as a senior, he had about 300 receiving yards, just kind of had a lot of injuries throughout his career. That's why he wasn't too great on the stat sheet. But throughout his career with Nebraska in 2021, did not play at all. Entered the portal after his only season with the Huskers, went over to North Texas, did not play in any of those games as well. Then going into 2023, transferred to junior college ranks. He actually was one of the better junior college receivers in America, had some good statistics. And then going into 2024, which was last year, he transferred to New Mexico State, didn't really play for them, and he's back with them in 2025. So Latrell Neville, really, really hyped up. But had some injury concerns throughout his career and just never lived up to it. Entered the portal after 1 year. But that was somebody who everybody wanted him. Everybody wanted him. The fan base wanted him. Once again, another bust. A.J. Rollins, our first in-state guy to talk about, coming out of Creighton Prep, 3-star tight end / defensive lineman. Spent a bunch of seasons with the Huskers from 2021 to 2024. Now, A.J. Rollins is just one of those weird cases where the staff never knew where to play him. He started off at tight end, then they moved him to D-line, they moved him back to tight end, they moved him to O-line, they moved him back to D-line. They moved him all over, right? And A.J. Rollins was a guy who just never got on the field. I think in 2023, he had 7 tackles, played in 4 games, but really just couldn't find a spot for him. So he spent 4 years with the Huskers, entered the portal actually this December, and hasn't found a spot. I don't know if he's actually going to play or if he's just going to retire from football entirely, but we will see on A.J. Rollins. But in-state kid who Nebraska, they felt like they needed to have, once again, did not pan out, did not really play at all, wasn't even in the 2 deep, 3 deep at all at any point in his career. Then on to Jalen Weaver, who once again was another very highly anticipated guy coming out of California. When I tell you this was a complete freak athlete, I'm not lying. He was 6'8". He was huge. He was about 300 pounds. I don't think this weight does him enough justice. But when you watched him on film, oh my gosh, he was speedy off the line of scrimmage. He was quick. He was making plays. He was a monster, man. In Nebraska, they genuinely felt like they got a hidden gem here with Jalen Weaver. Now, unfortunately, in 2021, did not play in any games. In 2022 with Nebraska, did not play in any games. They tried to transition him to D-line to O-line. And then he entered the portal going into the 2023 season. We are not sure if he landed anywhere. It looks like he's retired from football. So just another guy with that freak upside, didn't live up to any expectations. Then Marquez Buford, one of the bigger success stories in this class, the number 1 prep player in the 2021 cycle, coming out of Trinity Christian School. It's in Chicago originally. He's from Texas. Man, he was a dog. He was a dog. He played quarterback. He played receiver. He played, I believe he played safety, obviously, for that prep school, which is what he played for Nebraska. And ever since he's got to Nebraska, he's played 4 seasons with the Big Red. We already know what Marcus Buford's done on the field. He started a majority of the games throughout that time. He started all of 2024. He started the majority of 2023, but missed some time due to injury. He started 11 games in 2022, and he's come back this season. So Marcus Buford, he's been really, really good. Now, is he going to be an NFL guy? Probably not. But for a mid 3-star and for the number 1 prep player in America, there's usually not that many prep players who come out anymore. This is a pretty good success story. He's been very, very, very good. And Nebraska, they beat out some good schools for him. They beat out Florida State, Ole Miss, Cal. He had Syracuse in there. So big win by Nebraska at the point in time. And he's had a very, very good career. Now on to Roquan Buckley at Nebraska. Got later in the cycle coming out of Michigan. He was a 3-star defensive lineman. He was a guy who he didn't really flash too much when we watched him on film. He was only 6'6", wasn't really that athletic, but he's just a guy who kind of did everything right. That's why he was a mid 3-star. Just kind of did all the basics right, all of the, it's the stuff that you learn right off the get-go, right? So again, didn't have the highest ceiling in the world, probably wasn't going to be an NFL guy, but Nebraska felt like he could potentially be kind of a low-end starter, if not a really, really good backup. Now, he spent 3 years with the Huskers. 2021 appeared in 1 game. 2022 didn't play at all, and then 2023 played in 8 games, really didn't have too many stats. So then he entered the portal after that year, went over to Michigan State last season, and actually played a lot for the Spartans. He played all 12 games, had 9 tackles on the year, and then going into this season, he's in the mix to potentially start for them on the D-line. So shout out to Roquan Buckley. He's doing pretty well. Now, on to Mekhi Bayer, who took a little while to really unfold his career with Nebraska. He was somebody who I really liked. He was one of my guys coming out of high school, coming out of New Jersey at that linebacker spot with his freak upside, great speed, but he had the ability to lower the boom on you. His senior year of high school, he had about 60 tackles, 30 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. He was phenomenal. Now, he had some injuries early on in his career, but really came along in 2023, started to get a lot of reps, and then 2024, he had 11 starts for the Big Red, played in all 12 games, had about 50 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and overall was one of the more underappreciated players on this Nebraska defense. Now, we know how he entered the transfer portal after last year, went over to Missouri, spent the spring with them, then entered the portal again, and now he's with Bill Belichick in North Carolina with his final year of eligibility. We're wishing him well. Then, let's talk Heinrich Haarberg, because this was a very highly anticipated Nebraska commit in that 2021 class. He was a 4-star quarterback coming out of Kearney Catholic. They bumped him down to a 3-star, but I remember he was a 4-star. He was somebody who grew up to be a big Nebraska fan. Obviously, was a very big dual threat quarterback. The thing about Heinrich Haarberg was the stats were really good for him. He threw for about 2,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, had a bunch of yards on the ground. The stats were great from him in high school. It was just about the level of competition he played, because he played C2 talent, which is not very good. He's playing against future plumbers, basically, guys who are never going to play football again. So it's very hard to evaluate quarterbacks who play pretty much nobody in talent-wise. So that's why Heinrich Haarberg was, he was pretty much a high-risk, high-reward type of guy. Now, throughout his Nebraska career, 2021 did not play, 2022 did not play, but then, of course, in 2023, he finally got his opportunity with the Big Red, with Jeff Sims going down, Chubb Purdy going down. He played in 10 games with 8 starts at quarterback. Tumultuous season. He did not play very well, to say the least. He had 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He got benched going into 2024 with Dylan Raiola coming in. He played all 12 games last year, but not at quarterback. He played at tight end, played running back sometimes. So they tried to get him in the game, but Heinrich Haarberg is somebody who, he was just never meant to be quarterback. He was a freak athlete, but he was a high-risk, high-reward type of guy. I'm actually kind of happy. Looking back on it, I never thought he was going to play down Nebraska. I was never a big Heinrich Haarberg guy coming out of high school. So he's actually, lived up to my expectations. He probably outshooted him a little bit by starting a couple games for Nebraska at quarterback. But, honestly, I think if Scott Frost wanted him to succeed, he probably would have transitioned to tight end off the get-go, and he could have been one of the better tight ends in America. But unfortunately, 4 years down the line, we're now only transitioning to tight end, and it might be a little bit too late. So Haarberg actually did better than I was expecting, because I was not very high on him at the time. But, he's had an okay career with Nebraska. He has had an okay career. Kobe Bretz up next, who was another in-state guy coming out of West Side, state champion over there with the Warriors. Now, he played for Nebraska for 4 seasons from 2021 up until 2024 and just never played. Never played. He just stuck around. He felt like maybe this was going to be Kobe Brett's year. A guy was a rangy safety, had some decent upside, was a decent special teams player, but just never got on the field. 6'2", 185. Entered the portal after last season, and then transferred over to South Dakota State. It was actually a weird situation. He entered the portal. Then he went back to Nebraska for like a day. That he withdrawed. Then he must have found out that Nebraska didn't want him anymore. And then he entered the portal for the second time. Then went over to South Dakota State. So that was kind of a weird thing. But Kobe Brett is somebody who I was just never really high on to begin with. And again, not too shocking that he didn't work out. Then on to Camonte Grimes, who was a 4-star receiver, 3-star according to a couple others, coming out of Naples, Florida. He was a big-time recruit. He had a receiving yards of over about 2,000 throughout his career, 17 touchdowns. He was an All-American back in high school. A lot of really good offers in here, about 21. Kentucky, most notably, was really going after him hard. Florida was going after him hard. Now, in 2021, did not appear in a game. 2022, did not appear in a game, entered the portal when Matt Rhule got to town, went over to Northern Iowa, and really has not played at all for Northern Iowa as well. So just complete bust. A guy who, had athletic upside. He had great hands, decent speed, but just never got on the field. Just another miss by this staff. Teddy Nebraska up next, another in-state guy, 4-star offensive tackle, is at 6'8", 280 pounds. Very hyped up guy coming out Elkhorn South. Man, he was I was watching back in the day in high school. He was just pancaking everybody. He was, all Omaha World Herald, all Nebraska team. He was super state. He was first team everything, right? He was dominant. He's had a pretty decent Nebraska career. In 2021, he started 2 games at left tackle, which is pretty much unheard of throughout the history of Nebraska football. Then, of course, he had a season-ending injury. Then in 2022, started 3 games, then had a season-ending injury. In 2023, he played in 10 games and had another injury. And then 2024, he missed the entire year due to injury. So Teddy Nebraska is one of those guys who, once again, like Gabe Irving, when he's on the field, he was good. But he's just never on the field. He always got banged up. And the reason why is because he's, in my opinion, just too tall. He's too tall. He's about 6'9", 6'10". At that point, when you're that tall, it's very hard to have a great center of gravity. It's very hard to control your lower body. You have a lot of lower body injuries, particularly in the knees and the ankles. And that's what we've seen throughout his career. That's why there's not 6'10" tackles in the NFL anymore. So Teddy Nebraska, he's back in Nebraska this year. I'm not worried about him. If he's healthy, he's going to be good. I'm not worried about him on the field. It's just about, can he stay healthy? That easier said than done. That is easier said than done. All right, now on to James Carney, who was a very hyped up, once again, in-state guy who was a complete guy who just rose to the rankings. He was on nobody's board up until his senior year of high school. And for Norris, he was phenomenal. He was one of the most athletically gifted tight ends who's committed to Nebraska in a very long time. He was 6'5", 220 pounds. He ran a legit 4.40, which is, just nuts for a tight end. So once again, high risk, high reward. 2021, never played. 2022, never played. Entered the portal after that year. Actually went over to Concordia University, which is NAIA, and never played for them. So that's something that just doesn't make any sense to me. How can you go from Nebraska to an NAIA school and never play there either? I don't get it. But he never played at all, and looks like now he is retired from football. Now, on to Henry Lateef, who's currently with Nebraska. This is a 3-star offensive tackle, 4-star according to couples, 6'6", 320 pounds, coming out of Mount Pleasant, Iowa. This is a big win for Nebraska. A lot of big-time schools wanted him, most notably the Hawkeyes. Now, it took a little bit for Henry Lateef to get going. Really didn't play in 21, didn't play in 22, kind of played in 2023, but in 2024, he started 11 games at guard, played in all 12 games. He played very well. He played very well for the Huskers. He's back this season for the Big Red. And yeah, look at that. He had Georgia, Iowa State, Missouri in there. So listen, Henry Lateef, he's going to be solid for Nebraska this year in 2025. The upside for him is hopefully to get to the NFL. We will see on that one. But Henry Lateef, that was a big-time prospect. And he committed Nebraska very early on in the cycle, too. That's why he probably didn't get more offers than he deserved. Then Randolph Kapai was a 4-star outside linebacker coming out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Very hyped up guy. Throughout his career, he had over 200 tackles, 30 tackles for loss, 10 sacks. He was an All-American, according to a couple other sites. And he spent 3 years with the Big Red from 2021 to 2023. You already know what I'm going to say. He played in 0 games. Once again, high risk, high reward. He still learned how to play football. He came in from Africa, I want to say his sophomore year of high school, and started playing football. He was just natural at it. But sometimes those guys just, once it gets to the Big Ten level, can't really adjust. So he transferred going into 2024, went over to New Mexico, and he was actually really good for New Mexico last year. He started for them. He had a bunch of tackles on the year, and he's back with them this season. So Randolph Kapai, change of scenery. He's actually had a decent career with the Lobos. So hopefully he can do that once again this year. We're rooting for him. Now on to Wyndon Huahuli, who was a 4-star, top 200 linebacker in this class, 6'3", 220 pounds. Number 1 player in Hawaii, was an All-American, was an absolute freak back in the day in high school. 60 tackles, 8 sacks his senior year. Somebody who just, the upside was there with Wyndon Huahuli. It's just him doing all the things right off the field. Now in 2021, did not appear in any games. You already know what I'm going to say. 2022 did not appear in any games. So it's what's weird about this class is that it's not just that these guys were bust. It's that none of these guys even appeared in games. Like, none of these guys were even good enough to play like pity snaps, which is crazy to me. But Wyndon Huahuli transferred after the 2022 season, went over to Hawaii in 2024 with Hawaii. He played in 11 games, started 5 games, 14 tackles on the year, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. He's going to be back and start for them this season. So hopefully he can find some success with his hometown school. And last but not least, Thomas Fidone, who was a borderline 5-star recruit in the class of 2021 for Nebraska, the crown jewel of this cycle for the Big Red. And just like the rest of this class, Thomas Fidone just did not live up to expectations. Not to act like he was a complete bust, because he really wasn't, right? Obviously, in 2021, suffered an ACL right off the get-go. 2022, had another ACL injury, so he missed his first 2 years. In 2023, got on the field a lot more, had about 300 receiving yards. And then 2024, had a little bit around 400 receiving yards, started the majority of games for Nebraska. So Thomas Fidone, while he wasn't a bust, while he wasn't unplayable, did he live up to the 5-star potential? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He was a 7th-round pick in the NFL draft, went over the Giants. We'll see what he does. And it's just a case of injuries ruin his career. I really believe that. Like, from an athletic standpoint, he was great. But injuries ruin Fidone's career. And we see that all the time with the athletes. Like, if you injure your knees, they'll never recover the same way. So Thomas Fidone, once again, did not live up to expectations to every offer you can imagine. But unfortunately, that's just the way it was with this entire class for Nebraska. And it should be noted, he was ranked above Brock Bowers in this class. We already know what Brock Bowers is doing. He's the best, arguably one of the best tight ends in the NFL. So that's how highly anticipated Thomas Fidone was. Unlike Brock Bowers, did not live up to the expectations. Hopefully he has a good career in the National Football League. So, all right, guys. That's recapping the entire Nebraska 2021 recruiting class. It was very hyped up. There were a lot of big-time guys in this class for the Big Red. I thought that maybe Scott Frost, he could change his tenure. Nope. Bust. One of the worst classes in Nebraska football. Only second to the class the very next year. We'll talk about that in an upcoming video. But let me know your thoughts down below about Nebraska's 2021 recruiting class. What do you remember about it? Who do you think was the best player? Who do you think was the most disappointing player? I want to hear your thoughts down below. Hey, if you made this far, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe. As always, folks, go Big Red, go Matt Roll, and I'll see you in the next one.